The snow in Stillwater, Wyoming has a way of burying things, the roads, the noise of the world, and if you're careful enough, you're past. To everyone in town, I was Claire Dawson, and the cold was a blanket of security. 4 or 5 years, I'd live a life of meticulously crafted mediocrity. A rusted 2011 Subaru, a small rented cabin off a secluded dirt road, a job as a vet tech at Dr. Owen Pratt's clinic. Quiet, fiercely private, entirely unremarkable. That was the illusion. The truth is, Claire Dawson didn't exist. Before the snow, before the fake ID forged in a basement in Munich, I was Captain Elena Ward, a Tier 1 intelligence operative attached to Joint Special Operations Command. But Elena Ward had died in a fiery car crash outside Berlin 5 years ago. The military held a closed casket funeral. A folded flag was handed to a distant aunt. I had done the impossible, vanished from the most sophisticated surveillance grid on the planet. And I would have stayed vanished if the bell above the clinic door hadn't chimed at 4:15 on a freezing Tuesday. Dr. Pratt was in the back, checking a sedated golden retriever. I was up front organizing files when the draft of cold air hit me. I looked up, and the blood drained from my face. The man in the doorway screamed military. No uniform, just a heavy Carhartt jacket, faded jeans, scuffed boots. But the posture, the way his eyes scanned the exits the instant he stepped in, the coiled tension in his shoulders gave him away. And it wasn't even the man that made my heart slam against my ribs. It was the dog at his left heel. A Belgian Malinois, massive, lean, heavily scarred, missing a piece of his left ear, a jagged line of discolored fur down his right shoulder, the unmistakable signature of shrapnel. He wore a heavy tactical harness stripped of any government patches, but that dark olive drab webbing was JSOC issue. "Can I help you?" I asked, forcing my voice into something customer service friendly, while every muscle screamed at me to run. "Yeah, sorry to walk in so late," the man said, a low, gravelly baritone. "Just moved to town. My boy here's due for his joint supplements. Wanted to get him registered locally." "Of course." I pulled a blank intake form across the counter. "What's his name?" "Titan." My pen froze for a fraction of a second. Titan. The name went off in my head like a gunshot. Syria, 2019. A blacked-out little bird tearing through the night sky. The smell of aviation fuel and dry desert dust. A SEAL assault team in the dark. And at their feet, a Malinois with a titanium-capped tooth, panting softly over the roar of the rotors. It couldn't be. The military had hundreds of working dogs. But as I stepped around the counter to hand over the clipboard, Titan's head snapped up. He didn't sniff me politely. His dark, intelligent eyes locked onto my face. He stepped forward, bypassing the man's leg, and pressed his nose firmly against my knee. One long, deep breath. Then he took a step back, dropped into a rigid, perfect sit, and raised his right paw, resting it deliberately on the toe of my boot. "Novak Hingdal." Just staring up at me, waiting. The man holding the leash went still. The casual demeanor vanished, replaced by razor-sharp intensity. He looked at his dog, then slowly raised his eyes to me. "That's strange," he said softly, his hand shifting subtly toward his hip. "He doesn't do that. Ever." "Do what?" I forced a nervous chuckle. "Shake hands." "That's not a handshake," he replied, eyes burning holes through my disguise. "That's a classified target recognition alert. He only does that for friendly operatives he's been embedded with. He's identifying you." My mind raced. The protocol was called a green light sit, used during night exfiltrations to prevent friendly fire, the dog silently identifying deep cover operatives to the extraction team. Titan remembered my scent. 5 years, 3 continents, and gallons of cheap drugstore perfume later, that dog remembered the scent of Captain Elena Ward. "I think your dog's confused," I said, backing away slowly, my right hand slipping into the pocket of my scrubs where I always kept a ceramic folding knife. "I've never been near the military. I grew up in Portland." The man glanced at the intake form. He hadn't written his name yet, but he didn't need to. "I'm Chief Petty Officer Ryan Cole," he said, his voice dropping an octave. "And Titan here deployed with the teams. He doesn't get confused, Ms. Dawson. He remembers you. I need to check on the doctor. I blurted, spinning on my heel and walking fast into the back. I didn't stop in the treatment area. I bypassed Dr. Pratt entirely, went straight out the back door into the freezing alley, and broke into a dead sprint. The ghost life was over. The clock was ticking, and I had less than an hour before the hounds of my past were released. By the time my rusted Subaru fishtailed up the icy driveway of my cabin, the sun had set and the woods were suffocating with dark. I killed the headlights a quarter-mile out and navigated by memory. Inside, I moved in the dark, pulled back the living room rug, pried up the loose floorboard, and hauled out a heavy waterproof case. Inside lay the tools of a dead woman: 3 passports, stacks of euros and dollars, a matte black pistol with 3 loaded magazines, a satellite phone, and a secure hard drive. The hard drive. I stared at it, chest heaving, shoving magazines into my tactical belt. That little piece of metal was the reason Elena Ward had to die. 5 years ago, during a raid on an insurgent compound, my unit had breached their servers, and instead of terrorist communications, I found financial ledgers. Off-the-books transactions linking a highly decorated American general, Adrian Bishop, to the sale of weaponized drone software to foreign paramilitaries. Bishop wasn't just a commander. He was a kingmaker in the Pentagon. By the time I realized my own commanding officers were part of the smuggling ring, it was too late. My convoy was ambushed 3 days later. They called it an enemy IED, but I saw the laser targeting beam. It was a localized drone strike, an American drone strike. I barely survived, escaping into the desert with the encrypted drive. I knew if I went to the authorities, I'd be killed in holding. So I became a ghost. Until today. Until Ryan Cole and Titan walked into my clinic. I grabbed my coat, slung a duffel over my shoulder, racked the slide, and was reaching for the doorknob when a sharp electronic chirp came from the kitchen counter. My perimeter alarm. Someone had just tripped the infrared sensor at the base of my driveway. I dropped the duffel, raised the pistol, and pressed my back to the wall beside the heavy oak door. The snow muffled the footsteps, but I heard the crunch of ice under heavy boots, then a low whine of weight on the porch. "Claire," a voice called through the door. "Or whatever your real name is. I'm alone. Titan's in the truck. Don't shoot through the door." It was Cole. "Take one more step, Chief, and I'll put a hollow point through your chest," I yelled, throwing my voice to the center of the room. "You're fast," he said, calm, "but you left a hell of a footprint leaving the clinic. I ran your plates. Claire Dawson, social issued 5 years ago. No tax history before that. No hospital records. You don't exist. Go away, Cole." "I can't." Titan deployed on 72 direct action raids. He saved my life more times than I can count. When he gave you that signal today, it freaked me out, so I made a call. My blood ran cold. "Who did you call?" "A buddy at Naval Intelligence." Gave him your description, told him about the dog's reaction, asked if any female intel operatives went missing in the Syrian theater around 2019. I closed my eyes. "You naive, loyal idiot. Cole, listen to me very carefully," I said, dropping the civilian act for the cold authority of an officer. "Who exactly did your buddy report to?" "He didn't say. Just told me to stay put. That a specialized debrief team from JSOC was in the area, coming to talk to you." "They aren't coming to talk." I ripped the door open. Cole stood on the porch, hands flying up, startled, the barrel of my pistol aimed at the bridge of his nose. "Get inside. Now." He stepped in, eyes darting to my weapon, my belt, the open case on the floor. "You're an operative," he breathed, realization washing over his hardened features. "My God, you're Elena Ward. They said you burned in a vehicle fire in Berlin." "I did," I said, slamming and bolting the door. And General Adrian Bishop lit the match. "He's at a JSOC now. A 4-star. And a traitor. I have proof on a drive that he sold targeting algorithms to the highest bidder. When they realized I had the data, they wiped my team to silence me. If you called Naval Intel, you just lit a beacon right over my head." Before he could process it, a sound pierced the night. From down the road where he'd parked, a dog began to bark. Not a normal bark, but a vicious, echoing roar, the sound of a Malinois engaging a target. "He only barks like that for an armed threat," Cole said, panic bleeding in as he drew a pistol from his waistband. I stared into the snowy tree line. At first, nothing. Then 4 faint red laser dots swept across the snow, moving in perfect tactical synchronization, fanning out to surround the cabin. Suppressed weapons. Night vision. Bishop hadn't sent a debrief team. He'd sent a hit squad. They tracked your phone, I said, eerily calm as the training overrode panic. How much ammo do you have? 2 mags. Not enough. I grabbed the duffel. We have 30 seconds before they breach. We get to your truck, get Titan, get off this mountain. A heavy thud echoed from the roof. Too late. The front window shattered inward, and a flashbang tumbled into the living room. Down! I screamed, diving behind the heavy oak island as it detonated in a roar of white light and thunder. The ghost of Stillwater was dead. Captain Elena Ward was back at war. For 2 agonizing seconds the world was nothing but ringing and the taste of sulfur. I'd been forged in chaos. Before my vision cleared, muscle memory took over. I rolled left, bringing the pistol up just as the front door was kicked off its hinges. 2 operators swarmed in, suppressed carbines shredding the island where we'd just been standing. I fired twice. The lead operator collapsed, clutching his plated chest. Not a kill, but it bought us 3 seconds. The floorboard. I screamed over the gunfire, grabbing Cole by the collar and hauling him toward the pantry. He laid down a wall of covering fire, his unsuppressed pistol booming like thunder in the tiny cabin. I kicked away a rug, revealing a hidden trapdoor. I'd spent my first 3 months in Stillwater digging that tunnel by hand, freezing my fingers raw for a moment exactly like this. I shoved Cole down the chute and dove in behind him, pulling the reinforced hatch shut as the wall above disintegrated. We slid down an icy embankment into a cramped crawl space beneath the foundation. Above us, combat boots pounded the floorboards. They're going to find the hatch, Cole whispered. I know, I said, pulling a small detonator from my pocket. That's why I left them a parting gift. I pressed the button. A thermite charge planted inside the cabins with stove ignited. Not an explosive, a chemical fire burning at over 4,000 degrees. Above us, the operator screamed as the interior became a white-hot furnace. Go out the vent. We scrambled through the dirt, kicked open the iron ventilation grate, and spilled into thigh-deep snow behind the cabin. The whole place engulfed in flames behind us. The truck's 50 yards east, Cole grunted, but we have a problem. Standing between us and his Raptor was a 3rd operator in white winter camo, rifle raised, advancing on a truck. Inside the cab, Titan was berserk, throwing his 70 pounds against the glass. He's going to shoot the dog, Cole said, raising his pistol, but the distance was too far for a sure shot in the dark, his hands shaking from the cold. Wait, I whispered, eyes locked on the frosted window. The operator aimed at the driver's side, where Titan was lunging. But Titan didn't just lunge. He was a breach-trained veteran. Recognizing the weapon, he backed to the center console, coiled his hind legs, and launched himself at the center of the weakened, frozen glass. It shattered outward in an explosion of ice. Before the operator could fire, 70 pounds of airborne muscle hit him square in the chest, jaws clamping his vest, dragging him backward into the snow. Moo! We sprinted across the clearing. Cole tackled the operator off his dog and drove the butt of his pistol into the man's helmet, knocking him cold. Teton, hail! The dog released instantly and snapped to his side, snout frosted, a thin line of blood on it. Good boy. I yanked open the passenger door. Get in now. Cole threw the Raptor into gear, the tires spinning before catching, and we tore down the mountain, the blazing cabin shrinking behind us. Where are we going? He yelled, fishtailing around an icy bend. They'll have drones up in 5 minutes. We can't outrun a JSOC thermal satellite. We aren't running, I said, pulling the hard drive from the duffel. In the green dashboard glow, the terrified vet tech was gone. Bishop wants to erase my past. Fine, but I'm going to make sure the whole world sees his. There's a decommissioned Cold War radar station 20 miles north, near the Canadian border. Abandoned, but the high-gain microwave antenna still works. I tapped into it 3 years ago, just in case. I opened a ruggedized laptop. You're driving. I'm broadcasting to the Senate Armed Services Committee, the DoD Inspector General, and the investigative desks of 5 major news networks, all at once. Once the data hits civilian servers, Bishop can't put the genie back in the bottle. Titan whined softly from the back seat and pushed his heavy head between us, nudging my shoulder. I paused my typing to scratch behind his scarred ear. "I owe you my life, buddy," I whispered. 20 agonizing minutes later, the truck smashed through the rusted gates of the abandoned station. A towering, rusted satellite dish loomed against the snowy sky. We bailed out into a howling wind, and I sprinted for the concrete control bunker. Cole and Titan cover my flanks. Inside, freezing and stinking of decaying concrete, I slammed my laptop on a steel desk, jammed an Ethernet cable into the ancient terminal, and plugged in the drive. A progress bar appeared. Too slow, Cole said, watching the dark valley below. "It's a massive file. Ledges, drone telemetry, audio recordings. 10 minutes minimum." "We don't have 10 minutes. He nodded out the window. In the distance, the rhythmic strobe of aviation lights cut through the snow, an MH-60 flying low and dark. Bishop had sent the cavalry. They tracked the truck. Cole had 14 rounds left. I had 10. "Hold the door," I ordered, fingers flying to optimize the bandwidth. The helicopter hovered 50 yards out, downdraft whipping the snow into a blinding cyclone. 6 operators fast roped down and advanced in a tactical diamond. "Titan," Cole said softly. The Malinois stepped forward, ears flat, a terrifying growl in his chest. The first breach came fast. A charge slapped against the steel door. "Get back." Boom! The door blew inward, smoke filling the corridor. 2 operators rushed the gap. Cole dropped the first with a clean shot to the shoulder. The second raised his weapon at Cole, but Titan was faster, launching through the smoke like a missile, sending the man's shots wide into the ceiling. The 2 of them tumbled out onto the snowy landing in a brutal struggle. "Titan," Cole stepped to help, but a third operator's suppressing fire drove him back behind the concrete. "Cole, I need 3 more minutes," I shouted, drawing my pistol and firing into the smoke to keep the entry clear. Outside, a sickening yelp cut through the gunfire. My heart stopped. Cole's face twisted in pure rage. He abandoned cover, stepped into the fatal funnel of the doorway, and emptied his magazine. The operator who'd struck Titan dropped motionless. Cole ran out, grabbed the dog by the harness, and dragged him back inside. Limping, blood near his ribs, but alive, his eyes still burning with fight. "I'm out," Cole yelled, dropping his empty pistol. I stepped to the doorway. 5 bullets left, 3 armed men advancing up the stairs. It was over. "Drop your weapons," a voice boomed from the bottom of the stairs. "Last warning. Ward, give up the drive." I aligned my sights on the lead man's chest. "Go to hell," I whispered. Ping. The laptop chimed. I risked a split-second glance. The screen glowed brilliant green. Upload complete. Packets delivered. I hadn't just sent it to the government. I'd forwarded the raw files to the personal inboxes of every major editor in Washington, triggering an automated emergency broadcast. At that exact moment, the lead operator's radio crackled, loud enough for me to hear from the top of the stairs. "Command to Team Alpha. Abort. Abort immediately. We have a massive data hemorrhage. The Pentagon is being raided by the FBI. General Bishop has been detained. The target is burned. Stand down." The operator froze. He looked at his radio, then up at me, my gun still leveled at his head. Slowly, he lowered his rifle. The other 2 followed. They were mercenaries, but they weren't stupid. Their paycheck had just been arrested for treason, and Elena Ward was now the most famous whistleblower in American history. I let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for 5 years. My knees went weak, and I slid down the concrete wall. Cole sat beside me, cradling Titan's head. The dog licked his chin, then weakly nudged my knee, the exact same green light sit he'd given me in the clinic. Acknowledging the mission was over. By the time the sun rose over the snow-capped peaks, The sky was full of a different kind of helicopter. Federal agents, military police, medical evac. General Adrian Bishop was indicted on 42 counts of treason, espionage, and conspiracy to commit murder. The entire Shadow Network was ripped out by the roots. The military offered me my old rank back. They offered me a medal. They offered me a desk in the Pentagon. I declined all of it. 3 months later, a rusted 2011 Subaru pulled up to a vet clinic in Stillwater. The snow was finally melting, revealing the green grass beneath. I walked through the front doors in my familiar blue scrubs. Behind the counter stood Ryan Cole, organizing files, while Titan, fully healed now, sporting a bright red bandana, chewed lazily on a tennis ball in the corner. He looked up, tail thumping against the floor. I smiled, a real smile, unburdened by ghosts or secrets. I wasn't Elena Ward anymore. I didn't need to be. I was exactly where I belonged. Did this story of betrayal, survival, and an unbreakable canine bond keep you on the edge of your seat? If you love Titan and this fight for justice, hit that like button right now. Share it with fellow thriller lovers and dog enthusiasts, and subscribe for more action-packed, true-to-life stories. Drop a comment below. Would you have risked it all to expose the truth?